child of Somali immigrants, and I'm the child of Honduran immigrants.
It's gonna be a great show. It's gonna be fun. We're just gonna talk about random stuff that's relevant to growing up in the U.S. as an immigrant. So join us. You might laugh, you might roll your eyes, or you might tune us out. I don't know.
It's over that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, this is like pretty close quarter. I'm used. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. This show is sponsored by our business, Mosaic Capital Group, where we focus a lot on investing in real estate and offering opportunities for you to invest alongside of us on those real estate deals. If you're interested, we definitely welcome you to check us out.
Yeah, and you can find us at mcgequity.com. Again, that's mcgequity.com. That's our website. You'll find tons of wonderful free resources there. Plus, you can reach out to us in terms of seeing new opportunities and various aspects of investing. So please check it out. There's some ebooks there that can also give you some great info. So check it out and join us.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of You're So Well Spoken. We're so happy to have you here with us. This, when we first started with this idea of this show, we were kind of bouncing around the idea, the other show's so business focused. This one's going to be more like therapy for us. And we're excited to have a real life therapist joining us. And so we're really excited to have you, Liliana. We're going to just talk about feelings and talk about stuff.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not familiar with Liliana, she is a certified therapist, Liliana Baylon. Is that Baylon? Baylon.
Baylon, yeah.
Baylon, thank you. Certified therapist, and she specializes in multicultural communities, families. Do you do both adult and children, or do you specialize in one particular area?
So I work with both populations, yeah.
Okay, great, because we're adults, but we're kids at heart as well. We fit both criteria.
So no, thank you for having me. As you share, my name is Liliana Baylon. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I grew up in Mexico, migrated to the U.S. with my mom and my two siblings when I was a teenager. I work with, I love working with Latinos, but because my expertise in regards to migration and newcomers, now I tend to work with anyone who just migrated to the U.S. How I became a therapist, let's fill in the stereotypes. I actually have a background in business because my mom told me, like every Mexican mom, that I needed to be so-and-so. So either you have to be a lawyer, a doctor, or in business. So I actually have an MBA. That was my first career. That was okay, but not fulfilling. So like any overachiever migrant, I started volunteering in Colorado as a mediator. Please do not call me for that, but that's what I did. I'm so overachiever that I decided to go back to school and actually get a certificate in mediation. So I was able to, in my volunteer work, to help judges in my county when it comes to parental agreements. Because clients were keep coming back, I was like, there's something else that I need to do. So I did some research and I went back to school and I got a second master's, but in this time in counseling.
You're an overachiever.
Oh, I'm like the typical migrant first daughter, like I'm it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that's like the universal theme for all immigrant families because I have a law degree. My brother has a medical degree. Alex has an MBA. It's like you have no option. You just got to hit one of those criterias.
Like, is this okay, mom? Kind of thing, right? So very proud of my MBA, kind of sort of the mental health. So why this? And then I decided to, so this is why I decided to go back to school. What I realized is that most people have these emotional needs not being met. They want to tell their story. They want someone to validate their story and make sense of it. And that's not something that we usually are exposed to, and definitely not something that we get through the courts. Once I was in school, I decided, one, because I'm bilingual, that I definitely wanted to work with the Latino population, anyone who needed Spanish speaking services. So I'm one of the few that I can actually hold a session in Spanish and catch it, not only the Spanish from Mexico, but the bilingual Spanglish that we do here in the US. So I will say I speak more than just one language. Um, but then I started narrowing it down in regards to there's a lot of experiences, as you mentioned, that we have when we are migrants and we are diving into two different cultures that there was not a training or a specialty on. So then I just started reading and focusing on this population in order to find out what were the things and what was the need. And that's where I went in, and now that's what I know from.
What? So I don't know. I feel like we all have issues of some sort or another, especially as being children of immigrants and being first generation immigrants ourselves. But it's to a point where I don't even know what the issues are just because they've become a norm to me until somebody points out something is weird.
Yeah.
So what are some of the main things that you've noticed as a common thread with a lot of the immigrant communities?
And actually, before you answer, I want to get the phones. I want to make sure they're in silent and off the table because I don't want them to vibrate. Um,
That's
so
good.
You're like, I'm about to get therapy and I do not want
yeah, it's gonna get good. Yeah. Okay, so you're on silent, but
Yeah,
also
I'm
off the
sorry.
table too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because there was the work one. Okay,
I got
okay.
it.
anyone who's
Now we're
listening and watching this. This is the behavior of a migrant who's a child who grew up like, we cannot interrupt.
no mistakes
No
allowed.
mistakes.
Yeah.
You're to be seen, not heard.
No kidding. So you're absolutely right. First of all of us encounter issues. We all have daily stressors that create stress, anxiety, anger, and all of those are natural. When you are the daughter or the son of a migrant family, that comes with additional, I'm going to call it issues right now, that most people are not aware of, such as you are parentified. When you go to therapy and then you said like, well, I take care of my parent needed translations, my parents needed like for me to educate my siblings, my parents, like it's all these things that we do because that's what we do in our homes. And then when we came to this country, our parents just relied more on us because they were working, they were trying to make sense of a new country, new policies, new how-tos, so they rely on us to do so. So then you go to therapy and then they tell you, well, you're parentified. You were not supposed to have these responsibilities. Okay. But everyone that I know does. So what are you talking about? So that's one. The other one is the first time that I went to therapy, as a therapist, they told me, you're too enmeshed with your family. You do everything with your family. And I'm
What does
like,
that mean? Isn't that normal?
thank you. I was like, everyone that I know does, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But it made me feel like I was doing something wrong. So then I realized because most people here in the US don't have this, they think about the I and then the we. We come from cultures that focus on the we and how we're going to help our family. And then we do everything together because that's how we build communities. When I grew up in Mexico, it was everything around family and my neighbors.
I feel so understood.
No, but that's probably. I'm sorry we cut you off, but like it is probably this, right? Like I remember, like exactly that idea of independence and maybe even being seen as if that's weird that you put your family such in such a high value. But probably if it was a therapist like you wouldn't probably put that on the person you're talking to. You would understand that that's a normal thing because they're
Yeah.
one of us.
When they say, I was like, you too? I know! That's very familiar to me too.
No, it's something that's I've always found it hard to communicate with other people, like just more Americanized people in general, because everyone is so kind of individualized. So the idea of having more kind of family responsibilities and things like that, it's just so alien to people. They're just like, what are you doing? I don't understand. Just let them figure it out themselves. And it's like, no, I can't let them figure it out themselves because they won't figure it out themselves.
Or when they tell you put boundaries, I'm like, what are you
There's no
talking
such
about?
thing.
You should tell your mom. I'm like, I'm not gonna tell her anything. You should go tell her, and I'll watch.
You
So
know,
is
it's
it
interesting. The last
good?
time I went over to your house,
Yeah.
your dad mentioned that. He was really offended that you told him, "Oh, I already have children. I have you two as my children." And he was very offended because he doesn't like the feeling of, he
Yeah,
doesn't want to feel like he's a burden on you. He doesn't want to feel like he's, but, there's some
yeah.
reality to that, but that's really interesting. He was hurt by that.
Yeah, but he goes out of his way to be difficult on purpose.
Do not
So,
ruin this for me. This is what it is.
We're getting right into it. We're getting
yeah,
right into the
yeah,
therapy.
yeah. It's a main issue. I think it's like in our cultures, like the fathers. You're the central figure of the family, so you're like the authority figure.
Yeah.
You take care of everything. You're in charge of everything. So my parents are at that age now where the dynamics are shifting, and I've taken on more of the responsibilities, and my father is having a hard time letting go of certain things.
Mhm,
And it's not that I don't want him to take over and handle those things.
mhm.
It's just that he refuses to do them correctly.
Oh, oh my God, you're turning into your dad. Is that what you're sharing with
Yeah,
us?
well,
That's
probably.
another topic.
But no, it's just there's a strong disconnect. Like I think there's a fear of modernization in some ways. Like I know how things work now. Things have changed. In his mind, it's still like 1962 and nothing has changed in the world.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens with a lot of families.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, you know, particularly like some of the newer immigrants. If you've been here for like at least one generation, or if you came here younger, I
Mhm.
think you adapt well. But if you came here as an adult, it's very difficult, and that has been the problem I've experienced with my parents, at least. Just getting them to accept change.
Yeah, but it's hard, especially as they're aging,
Yeah,
because they're regressing to what is familiar to them. So
yeah,
they're regressing and seeing like this is what my dad or my grandfather did. And for you, me, and Alex, everyone who's here, or every other listener who's here, and we came out younger, yeah, we adopted, but that's also part of the struggle. We have two cultures now, two ways
yeah.
of seeing things and thinking about things. And when we go back home and they're still on that, this is how we did things, it's really hard to feel like you have a place, that you're being understood, or that you're appreciated because you think differently.
Yeah, that's true. I do find that for mine, the fact that I think differently is like it's terrible. It's they call it arrogance.
Oh
That's
yeah,
what they call it. Yeah, like I'm
maybe for you,
arrogant.
but yes.
How interesting.
You
So,
you're still a little bit more better acclimated though.
uh, yeah, I mean, I think a lot, I don't feel like I was very, what's the word? Parentized?
Parentified?
Um, no, I don't feel like that happened to me too much. I mean,
Mm.
they tell me stories of things that they didn't know, right? When they first came, like, I don't know, I think one of the ones is when they made me repeat kindergarten, and then they put me in English as a second language very early on, even though I
Mhm.
spoke English, and I had
English.
already,
Sure. We believe.
I promise, honestly, the name of the show is You're So Well Spoken.
It's okay. It's the Miami accent.
But essentially, they didn't know that they could fight a little bit more and kind of get me
Yeah.
advanced and ahead. And so
Yeah.
there's some regrets like that, but yeah, by now they're very much acclimated, and I mean, yeah. So it's less in my case,
Yeah.
but still maybe some of the other issues that we'll cover, I'm sure, are involved. So far we talked about parentization.
Yes.
What else have we talked about?
Well, I was gonna say
Oh,
there is a like in terms of my case, the presentization. About to flip myself with this thing. It started later on, so I don't know if that's like a normal thing for something. Because like early on, they were. I mean, I never really had to think about anything adulting wise. It was just my parents were telling me focus on school. That is your primary focus, nothing else. So the closest thing is like maybe like helping out in the household. If they were juggling multiple jobs, so I would have to help with the household chores and things like that. Sometimes my mom would do like side jobs on the weekends, so sometimes I'll go help her with that.
Cool.
That's about the closest I got to like pronunciation as a kid. It's more so as an adult where I'm not questions like, how did you survive before?
Oh, so yeah, no, look. So even like as we're talking about this, right? Like we're not talking about how our parents did. We're talking about so who assimilated and who acculturated the fastest. So when our parents, when we're talking about assimilation, it's automatically when we adapt from language to way of thinking to everything from this culture. We're going to talk about the U.S. because that's the way of coexisting and belonging. So speaking English, thinking like and wanting to behave like in order to survive. That is a given. So that's assimilation. And then we have acculturation, where we buy in into some of the, I'm going to call it policies, some of the policies of this new culture. So I will speak English, but I will speak Spanish at home or whatever language. I will go out and present myself this way, but when I go home, I am the daughter or the son of, and I have to do these chores and I have to do these things because there is an honoring system of I have to cultures to honor, right? So that's the difference between assimilation. We let go completely of the other culture and we assimilate to the new culture, or we have acculturation where we have a mixture of the two.
Yeah. My
So are
brother
they
assimilated.
so are they opposites or are they two things that we can do at the same time?
So they will tell you that they are different, not opposites. Because the opposite is like when you have a parent who refuses to speak English, who only goes to the community stores that they know because they can speak the language, they have their ingredients, it's everything that reminds them at home. That will be the opposite, which I completely blank out what is called. But that is completely the opposite of acculturation or assimilation. And there are still individuals. I know of individuals close to me who will refuse to speak the language, refuse to dress like or do things. The nostalgia of like this is what I miss from home, so they fight to keep that. So that is the opposite of assimilation and acculturation.
So acculturation is holding on
Bits and
to to,
parts.
to
Bits.
parts of our.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I'm gonna try to summarize, right? So in our cases, right, we both still speak our home languages, our original languages, and this is cool for us because I feel like we started this and we never really we related on this, but we never really studied it. We're not so. This is great for us to kind of get some vocabulary that we can hold on to as we
Yeah.
continue to do episodes. And so, okay, so acculturation is the fact that we still speak our home languages,
That you hold,
respective.
that you are respecting the both
Yeah.
cultures and holding both
We've got
cultures.
we've got a foot in each world.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you keep calling it? Daywalkers?
Yeah, daywalkers. Yeah.
That's his favorite term lately. We're daywalkers.
And so assimilation is that you mentioned the word survival. So it's a relatively lower threshold. Is just to be able to survive and function in the society, we need to speak English. We need to, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're willing to let go of your roots.
In a
Or
way you do, and part of it is think about historically in the US, which I know that in some parts like they're fighting so that we don't remember these parts, but historically in the US, most migrants, it doesn't matter the culture, historically we all have gone through this, like here's your pass, lucky one you have the same experience, but we all have experienced discrimination to the point that they segregated you. This historically in the past they segregated you and they forced you to speak, to behave like the majority culture in order for you to be okay. So that was part of the assimilation. So when you think about historically in the past, everyone has gone through this where you have to sound like me, eat like me, behave like me so that you can be welcome here. So that was the assimilation part. So when I think about Mexico, especially in, we have had historically a really dark history with the US, but especially like back in the 70s, we went through a phase where you were not allowed to speak Spanish. If you did, you were rejected automatically. Um, Not that doesn't happen nowadays, but like it was so drastic that a lot of the families will tell their children, don't speak Spanish. We will only speak English so that we don't lose job opportunities, professional opportunities, so that we don't lose what we have worked really hard for. So part of the simulation from a survival state is you did it to belong, to exist, and you let go completely of your past culture in order to buy your ticket for this new culture.
And I saw that a few years ago. I had a friend of mine. She's Latina, and she was dating another guy who was half Latino and half white.
Yeah.
And well, no, actually, no, sorry, he was a quarter Latino and three quarters white. His mother was half Mexican and half white,
Mhm.
and it seems like she was so disappointed. It seemed like that he was dating a Latina just because her and her mother and family have been working so hard to kind of you know lighten the gene pool, so to speak, and he was taking a step back in being with someone who was tan.
Yeah. So that's where, when we're talking about discrimination, racism, that's when we're focusing on colorism. So in
Yeah.
Spanish, we have the saying of better the race, right? Um, which doesn't translate nice. So we're just going to leave it the way it is. Um, but literally says like you're supposed to better the race and not marry someone who's going to set us back. So someone who's whiter, someone who sound different so that we can improve each generation, which is the form of discrimination and racism.
And it exists in every culture. I mean, even in like Africa, you can
Yeah.
see it there as well. I mean, one of the hottest selling cosmetic items is skin bleach
Yeah.
cream. It's crazy. Middle East as well, Asia, all sorts of parts of the world. The lighter you are, the better. So it's ingrained in all these cultures. I don't know if it's a byproduct. It's probably a byproduct of colonialism.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. So even on that, right, can we also even become aware? So as the myself identified as Mexican. So even when I talk and I said, look, there's a bunch of privileges that I have, and I'm very aware of it. One is that I have a lighter skin. Because of it, I am more welcome into spaces. Once I start opening my mouth, that may change because my accent may come out. That is different. But because of colorism, that's it. Because of the credentials that I have, it also opens doors. So that's part of, okay, so discrimination, racism exists. We have bought into these terms because someone told us that it was better. The perfect example that you're mentioning is if you go to YouTube and you Google, I think is the experiment of Barbie, or no, experiment of dolls. What they did back in the day is that they will bring children into a room and they said, which doll is better? And they will have one that is white and one that is African American. And every child, every girl picked the Barbie doll because it was white, because it had blonde hair, because it was prettier, right? So since we are kids, we're given these messages as who's better based on skin color.
Now, how's that translated into some of the work that you've been doing with a lot of these communities and these families? I mean, is that trickled over into? I'm assuming it has psychological impacts that
Yeah.
causes future trauma. Like, what are you seeing in terms of that?
So when I'm working with couples, it's usually because we have that example that you just gave, which is either one who is Caucasian, one who's not. And when they come in, eventually, because not at the beginning it's like, oh my God, you're Latino, or whatever culture it is, and like, this is so good.
Yeah.
And then they get married and they're like, this is bothering me and we're not going there, so on and so forth, right? So usually is having couples and dealing with cultural issues, either from language, from way of being, because my family does things this way, such as hanging too much. And it's something that other cultures may not understand. So that's one of the main ones. The second one is here in the US, everyone works. So everyone has autonomy from financial to decision making. And usually in couples, especially when you come and you're migrant or first generation, you tend to think like, mm-mm, we have gender roles here. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this. Why are we changing the rules? So those are the couples that I'm working with when it comes from culture perspective. When I'm working with young adults who are going to college or kids. I'm going to focus first on the young adults. They're going to universities and they're finding that no matter what they do, it's never enough. So if they go back home, you're so different. Why do you want an education? I think I hit a chord there with Alex, but okay, we will bypass
Well,
this.
I'm
Um,
I'm I'm surprised by that one actually, because normally it's you should get more education, is what I experience and what I hear.
but from a gender perspective, if you are a male,
Oh,
yes. If you're
okay.
female, no.
Cis,
Yeah.
cisgendered.
Yeah. Um, so most of the young professionals that I'm helping is because no matter what they do, it's never enough. Either from going back home and having family having expectations of that individual, either male or female, or not belonging. No matter what I do, no matter what I accomplish, I'm still the whatever culture it is. It will never be enough. I'm always past. I'm only brought if I'm doing translations, if they want something from me. But when they're looking for career advancements, like they're looking for the typical stereotype, this is what we're looking for, and I tend not to qualify for it. So most of the young professionals that I'm working with, they're like, there's no place for me. I'm going to call it, if I go to the white world, they're telling me I'm not enough. If I go to my family, I'm just not enough because I speak differently now. I know things that I should not know. And depending on the gender, I fail. I was supposed to, by this age, have so and so and so. So that's what I'm helping them with. So take a breath.
Brutal. Yeah. It reminds me of, actually, I read this book maybe like a year ago. I think it's called The Case Against Assimilation. And I think she describes that kind of hopelessness. Like, even if I get educated, even if I do this, even if I speak the language, even if I do, I'm still
Not enough.
not enough. So
Yeah.
she's like, don't assimilate. Hold on to who you are. I think I might be oversimplifying
No,
it,
no, you
but,
are.
but
But the way that I took it when I read it, and part of my language hopefully is okay, but I was like, fuck this. It's never enough. Like, what's the fucking point?
But,
But
but
it's true.
it's hard though. Like, how do you reconcile that? Because you do need to assimilate in terms of professionalism, just because you need that to survive. I mean, you need a job and you need to make money, and you can't do that if you don't assimilate to a certain extent. And then in terms of the cultural side of things, I feel like that's more in play with in terms of being able to manage your relationships with your family, or if you want to still get married and have your own family within your culture, to be able to manage that as well, you need to meet those cultural expectations also. So you kind of have to do everything, and you have no choice. So what do you do?
I was like, do you? So this is where I come in and play as a therapist. So, no, you don't.
Yeah.
I think the most, tell me about your case, but the most liberating part for me as the female, and that goes against me, shockingly, is that I decided I am Liliana in both cultures. The conversation that I have with family, not just my mom, but the conversation that I have with family was, remind me why you came to this country, the American dream. Got it. What is the American dream for you? And then we just started having a dialogue because there was a movie, and I'm trying to remember the name of the movie. And there's a beautiful scene in the movie where the dad, who's a Latino, says, "That's it, mija. This is the point where you get to see beyond what I can see." And every time that I saw that, which it was years ago, I will start crying because our parents have limitations because they come with that culture, they come with the American dream, but there's this nostalgia of what they remember, what they want to go back home to. For us, is different. For us, is if you brought me for the American dream, was that just financial? Like go to work and do the same. Christella, who's a comedian, says, when my mom used to go to work and clean houses, we would get on the bus and then I will see those beautiful homes and I will say, like, that's gonna be my home. And my mom is like, her mom was like, oh, that's the house that you want to clean. There was a limitation there for her mom. right? For Cristela Alonso, who's a comedian. If you haven't heard, please go watch it. I swear I'm not getting paid by her. She doesn't even know that I exist. But her comedy talks about our experiences as children of migrants. And for me, even when she said it, it helped me normalize and humanize my family in regards to they came in with the idea of, and then I went beyond that idea, right? For me as a female, having two master's degrees, my siblings would be like, but why do you need more education? Like, I don't understand. Why can't you just be happy going to work? Or why can't you stay home? You have a husband. Like, why can't you just stay there? I love that both of you are laughing because I was like, I want my own identity. I want to go and check out what was the American dream that they were dreaming, and I want to take it beyond. I was seeing beyond what my family was seeing.
Are you one of the youngest siblings?
Oh, I'm the oldest.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and there's, well, we can segue to that a little bit later, but there's also another component of the immigrant experience, and that's being the eldest child, which is its own world of issues and whatnot just by itself as well.
I mean, we can have a meeting and we will start crying if we're the oldest because we're like, you have to do that too. Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
I'm the youngest, so I was just
Pampered,
spoiled. Yeah,
pampered.
just everyone took care of me. So
Yeah, I will be. Even though I have my youngest is my sister, I have a middle brother, but because he's the male, he's like the spoiled one. I have no problem saying that. If he hears this, it's the true. He knows that he's just in denial. But so part of the limitations of working not only with young adults but also with children is my parents are expecting me to do this. It's their dream, not mine. I'm seeing these possibilities. I want to follow my own dream. And that's part of the grief for parents because they have a limited understanding, limited vision, and they feel incompetent to follow you on that.
So when you work with younger people, how much of your work is involving the parents? Because at that point, there's a lot of influence there. Do you go one on one with parents at part of that?
Yeah, because I'm as a Latina, I learned my lesson. We always include the families, but it's part of like including them and honoring them. Like, tell me your story, tell me your journey, tell me what is it that you did, what is it that your parents did, what is it okay. As a When I'm working with younger kids, I do play therapy, so it's a form of therapy. We do talk, but we tend to focus on play themes that surface. So even the first question that I'll ask families is it okay if we play? Most of us who are the oldest migrant children, we're not allowed to play. We had chores to do. We have to take care of our siblings. So the playing time for us ended really, really early. So coming to play with me, even in a family session, that feels foreign and uncomfortable.
I just thought about that. Like, I remember I just went to school and I came home and I did chores. My brother had soccer, he had wrestling, he had swimming classes, all sorts of things.
Not you, huh?
No, I had chores. School and chores, that's all I had.
Yeah. See, Alex is going to be excluded from our group.
Yeah, yeah.
Pampered.
I was very spoiled. Yes, I'm still
But
very spoiled.
but that's also part of the culture, right? How they see you.
Yeah.
If you come from a not just, but I'm going to talk about the Latino community. If you come from a Latino community, if you're a newcomer, like if you just arrive, they how we see males is completely different. So we do tend to cater to, and then they marry outside the culture, and it's like, wait, you want me to do what? How am I going to explain this? To my family or to my mom, like that's not gonna apply. So is this also right? Like, how do we talk about it in families of gender inequality, gender expectations, in addition to, and even from the beginning, let's tie it back. So how do we talk about this when we don't have language? We don't even know that there's these issues. I wish I can tell you. So one is there's more information in social media. we have a lot of people now posting videos about their experiences, which I really love. And I hate you at the same time because I did not have that when I migrated, but thank you. So you have all this information now giving you language, either in a comedian way or this is what's happening, which is really helpful in order to give you vocabulary. The other part is it is hard to go to therapy and talk about these things when we were not even aware that that was a pattern that was not working for us. So in therapy, I learned that how can I change something if I'm not aware that that's a pattern or that is working or not working for me? Let go of the culture. Is this working for me? And if it's not working for me, how can I negotiate with you so that I can coexist with you while I honor my needs? And that's what we do in therapy.
So, can you run us through like an example of that, like how, that kind of conversation? Like, how would that go? I mean, I think most people wouldn't even know how to approach that. I know like people that have wanted to go to therapy with their parents and whatnot, and just they're struggling to try to even get them to sit down and have that conversation to go to therapy, let alone actually have a conversation with a therapist. Also, before we get into that, I would like to add that I was just joking. You are not that pampered. You're actually very. I will say this.
Guilty.
I will say this. I will say this. Alex is actually the most responsible, caring person I know. So like he takes care of like his entire family, everyone. Like just great general person. You're an exception for younger siblings and children.
But
You can
but
get an honorary pass.
Okay, all right. I'm in the club. All right, I'll take it. But no, but it's interesting because I think, again, there's all these different dimensions to it, right? And I did have a lot of free time. I did, I had a few chores here and there, but I didn't have little siblings to take care of and stuff. But yeah, I think I'm interested in that topic too, right? The idea of resistance to going to therapy, like, I'm sure. Oh, I'm not crazy. I don't need therapy, right? There's, I'm sure there's all sorts of resistance
There's the stigma.
that's there,
Yeah.
stigma,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then just in terms of how does it actually work, right? Like, where are the results seen? How can you say if you do this, then there will be some benefit? And the idea of the fact that it's long term. Again, like just through these first few episodes, I felt like some breakthroughs happened. Like I'll admit that. So I'm a believer, but I just want to give you the chance to tell, like, maybe people to respond to some of those questions.
Or just like a general like,
Yeah.
give us like a scenario. Like, how would you just start the conversation?
So let's start by saying, first of all, therapy doesn't have to be long term.
Okay, so go over a bit. I think you're out of frame.
All right.
Yeah, this is like we're pretty close quarters. I'm used to having all this space by myself and not being around humans, and all of a sudden, I used to be a touchy-feely person, and that was very uncomfortable for me.